Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive.
Hey there.
So today we're zeroing in, really focusing on one core question that seems perfect for anyone planning ahead. We've got this. What It's called the final verdict,
Right?
and it asks point blank, is Lithuania worth visiting in 2026?
Yeah, and what's interesting about this source, our material here, is it doesn't really hedge its bets. It gives the answer right up front.
Which,
A pretty emphatic absolutely, yes.
okay, so our job today isn't really to argue with that yes.
No, not at all.
Right.
It's more about unpacking why. Why the strong recommendation? What's the evidence behind it?
Exactly. Understanding the reasoning and maybe figuring out who this destination is really for. Who's the ideal traveler for Lithuania looking
Right.
towards the middle of the decade?
Precisely. Because this isn't just a generic travel guide, it feels more like a strategic look for someone who travels intentionally.
Right.
And the core reasons boiled down seem to be that classic mix. You've got the deep history, the culture, the nature.
Yeah.
But, and this seems key,
What's the but?
the but is that it offers all this without what the source implies are the major downsides of, say, Western Europe right now.
Ah, okay. So avoiding the usual suspects, crowds, the sky-high prices.
That seems to be a central part of the appeal, yeah.
Yeah.
A way to get that rich European experience, but maybe more manageably.
Okay, let's definitely dig into that. That contrast is probably a huge draw for people planning now for 2026. So starting with the real practical stuff, the things you can almost measure, what makes Lithuania stand out as rewarding?
Well, the source material really hangs its hat on two main things initially, affordability and what it calls manageable scale.
Affordability and manageable scale.
And the idea is that these two things together really change the whole feel of the trip. They shift it away from constant budget stress towards, actual discovery.
Let's zoom in on the money first, affordability. When we say that, what are we really talking about? Is it just like hostels are cheap? Or something more fundamental?
It seems more fundamental. It's framed as a structural economic advantage. We're not just talking like saving a few euros on a coffee.
Right.
For someone maybe traveling longer term, it means your budget stretches further. Maybe that 2-week trip becomes 3 weeks or even 4 without a huge financial hit.
Okay, that's significant for long-termers. But what about the average person taking, say, a 2-week holiday?
For them, that affordability translates more into an upgrade in quality, I think. For the same amount you might budget for a standard mid-range trip in, say, Italy or France,
Yeah.
in Lithuania, you're potentially unlocking a significantly higher tier of experience. Better accommodation, better food, maybe more unique tours.
Okay, that's a really important distinction. It's not just saving pennies, it's getting more bang for your buck, essentially.
Better value.
Can you give us a concrete example, like accommodation? What does that look like on the ground?
Sure. So imagine your budget comfortably gets you a decent, maybe slightly small, 3-star hotel in, I don't know, central Florence.
Right. Functional, but maybe not luxurious.
Exactly. Well, that same budget in Vilnius, Lithuania's capital, could very likely land you in a really nice 4-star boutique hotel, possibly right in the heart of the Old Town, which is a UNESCO site.
Wow. Okay, so better location, better amenities, just more comfortable.
Yeah, more comfort, maybe better service. It changes the whole baseline of your stay.
And does that apply elsewhere? Like food, experiences, those can really add up in Europe.
It seems to apply across the board. Dining is a good example.
Yeah.
You hear about this new Baltic cuisine movement.
Okay.
Experiencing a high-end tasting menu, maybe 6 or 7 courses from a top chef in Vilnius, might cost you something similar to what you'd pay for just a pretty standard main course and maybe a shared appetizer in London or Paris.
Seriously, that much of a difference.
The cost difference can be really striking for that upper tier of dining. And it applies to things like guided tours, too. Hiring a private guide, maybe a historian specializing in a specific era for a whole day.
Yeah, that's usually super expensive in major Western capitals.
Right. Often prohibitively so.
Yeah.
But in Lithuania, according to this analysis, that kind of personalized deep dive experience becomes much more accessible. It moves from being a splurge
Yeah.
to something you can realistically factor into your trip.
I can see how that would totally change your mindset as a traveler. You're less worried about every single euro,
Exactly.
and you have more mental energy to actually, be there and absorb the place.
It frees you up to engage more deeply.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here a little.
Yeah.
If it's that much more affordable for tourists, does that create issues, like a 2-tiered system where tourists can afford things locals can't, or does it feel exploitative?
That's a really fair question. And it's a risk in any destination where there's a significant cost of living difference.
Right.
What the source seems to imply, though, is that for now, in 2026, it represents genuine high value rather than just an inflated tourist bubble. Prices are rising, definitely, but from a lower starting point. And crucially, the sheer volume of tourism hasn't yet hit that saturation point you see elsewhere. So the value feels more connected to the actual local cost of living.
So it's less likely to feel like a completely separate tourist economy.
Perhaps less so than in hyper-touristed zones, yeah.
Yeah.
The type of traveler Lithuania seems to attract currently, maybe more of that deep explorer profile might also mitigate that feeling of separation. But it's definitely something to be aware of as a destination develops.
Good point. So the economic advantage seems solid, at least for the time frame we're looking at. Let's pivot to the other pillar you mentioned, manageable size. Logistically, what does that mean for someone trying to make the most of, say, a week or 10 days?
It basically means efficiency. Less time wasted, more time experiencing. Think about larger European countries.
Yeah.
Moving between two major cities, like Paris to Nice or Rome to Venice, can easily eat up half a day or more just in transit. Train stations, airports, the journey itself.
Totally. It's a travel day.
Right. But Lithuania is geographically much more compact. Your key points of interest, the capital, Vilnius, the second city, Kaunas, the coast around Klaipėda, they're all relatively close and well connected.
Give me a sense of scale. How long are these journeys we're talking about?
Okay, so Vilnius to Kaunas, it's a really important cultural link. By train, you're looking at roughly 90 minutes. Super easy day trip, or easy to combine them.
90 minutes, that's nothing, like a commute for some people.
Exactly. And even going from Vilnius, the capital, all the way out west to the Baltic coast, that's probably the longest typical tourist journey internally.
And that takes...
Maybe 3 to 4 hours by train or car.
Right.
So entirely doable without losing a whole day.
Okay, so within a typical 10-day trip, you could realistically experience the capital, the second city, and the coast.
Absolutely. You could get a real sense of the country's different facets, the history in Vilnius, the sort of interwar modernism and culture in Kaunas, the unique nature out on the coast without feeling like you're constantly rushing or just staring out of a train window.
That lack of intense time pressure sounds, well, relaxing, actually.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just about travel between cities. The source specifically mentions accessible medieval towns. This
Good.
applies within the cities, too.
How so?
Take Vilnius Old Town. It's huge. It's a UNESCO site packed with history.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly walkable. It's compact. You don't need to master a complex metro system or figure out 10 different bus lines just to see the main sites.
Ah, so less logistical overhead just to navigate the place you're staying in.
Precisely. That sort of background complexity of just being in a massive, sprawling city like London or Rome is significantly reduced. It lets you focus your energy on looking up at the architecture, ducking into courtyards, finding little cafes.
Instead of figuring out which subway platform you need.
Right, it lowers the friction of exploration.
Okay, so bringing these two threads together, affordability and manageable scale, you start to see the core appeal really clearly.
Yeah.
It's that contrast the source highlights. You get the depth, the history, the culture you expect from Europe.
But delivered in a way that's easier on the wallet and easier logistically. Without the crowds or high prices of Western Europe is the key phrase.
It really positions Lithuania as a choice for someone making a deliberate decision to sidestep the usual madness.
I think so. It caters to that growing segment of travelers who are maybe feeling a bit burnt out on feeling like just another number in a massive tourism machine.
Yeah, the queuing, the selfie sticks everywhere.
Right. Lithuania seems to offer the substance centuries of history, that beautiful Baroque architecture, unique traditions, but in a way that feels more human scale, more navigable. You feel like you can actually connect with the place.
Less like you're being processed, more like you're exploring.
That's a good way to put it, like a guest maybe, rather than just a consumer unit.
Okay, that sets us up perfectly to talk about the more intangible stuff, the charm, the feeling of authenticity. Moving beyond the practicalities, what creates that feeling? What makes Lithuania feel genuinely off the beaten path?
Well, that charm seems to come from a mix of things, rooted in its specific history and how people interact. It's not just one thing, it's layered.
Let's start with the people. The source mentions welcoming people. How important is that? Does it really make a difference?
I think it makes a huge difference to the feel of a trip. When a place isn't totally saturated with mass tourism, interactions with locals can feel less transactional.
Less like they're just trying to sell you something?
Perhaps. Or maybe just less indifferent. The source suggests a genuine warmth, maybe even curiosity towards visitors sometimes. When you're ordering a coffee or asking for directions or just sitting in a local bar, a baraz, they call it the interaction might feel a bit more personal, less scripted.
So the barrier to feeling like you're actually engaging with the culture, not just observing it from behind glass, is lower.
That seems to be the idea. You're perceived less as just a walking wallet, and maybe more as someone genuinely interested in their place. That's crucial for feeling like you've had an authentic experience, isn't it?
Definitely. And that local atmosphere probably gets amplified during certain times. The source mentions lively festivals.
Yeah, festivals are key windows into the living culture. They're not just for tourists, they're part of the national fabric.
What kind of festivals are we talking about?
Well, they can show that vibrant culture the source talks about, often in contrast to the sometimes quite solemn historical sites.
Hmm.
A classic example is Jonas and St. John's Day, or Midsummer.
Ah, midsummer. Big deal in Northern Europe.
Huge deal. And in Lithuania, it has really deep roots going back to pagan traditions. Think bonfires, people weaving flower crowns, singing, maybe jumping over fires. It's very atmospheric.
So witnessing something like that, it connects you directly to something ancient, but still alive.
Instantly. It shows you that tradition isn't just something displayed in a museum, it's being actively lived and celebrated. It's part of the contemporary pulse.
Which leads right into that phrase the source uses, the blend of tradition and modernity. That sounds intriguing, but also a bit vague. How does that actually play out for a visitor?
To really get it, you have to understand the sheer weight of history here. It's not just a few old churches.
Okay, so let's pull on that history thread. What are the essential chapters someone needs to grasp?
Well, the big one, the foundation, is the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. You have to wrap your head around the fact that centuries ago, Lithuania was massive, one of the largest countries in Europe.
Really?
Yeah.
Larger than, say, France or England at the time?
At its peak, yeah. It stretched from the Baltic Sea way down, almost touching the Black Sea. It was a major power, a complex, multi-ethnic, multi-religious state for a long time.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize the scale.
And Vilnius, the capital, reflects that. Its old town, especially the incredible amount of Baroque architecture, speaks to that period of influence and connection with Central Europe, particularly Poland through the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It developed its own unique styles.
So that explains the UNESCO status and the visual grandeur you see.
Exactly, but that's only part of the story. That history is definitely not an unbroken line of glory.
No, I imagine not.
No. To understand modern Lithuania and that blend we're talking about, you absolutely have to grapple with the 20th century, specifically the 50 years of Soviet occupation after World War II.
Right. That must have left a profound mark.
Profound is an understatement. It shaped everything, the landscape, the economy, the psychology, the culture. So much of contemporary Lithuanian art, writing, even just conversation, subtly or overtly, deals with surviving that period and reclaiming independence.
So when the source talks about a blend, it means you might be standing in this magnificent 17th century Baroque church.
Yeah.
But the art gallery next door might feature work directly confronting the Soviet past, or the tech startup in the building across the street represents this explosion of post-independence creativity.
That's exactly it. You see the layers everywhere, the resilience. You mentioned the singing revolution earlier, that peaceful uprising using song and national identity to push for independence in the late 80s and early 90s. That spirit is still palpable.
So the vibrant culture isn't just folk dancing in old buildings. It's this dynamic negotiation between a deep, often difficult history and a very forward-looking present.
Precisely. Think about Ujupis, that district in Vilnius that declared itself an independent republic.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Kind of quirky, artistic.
Very much so. It has its own constitution, its own anthem. It's playful, but it's also a serious statement about creative freedom and self-determination in a city that was suppressed for decades. Seeing that kind of thing thrive right alongside the ancient castles and churches, that's the blend. It makes for a really rich, complex experience. You're constantly shifting focus between centuries.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we absolutely have to talk about nature. It often gets less attention than the cities, but the source highlights stunning landscapes and specifically names the Curonian Spit. Why is that one place so significant?
Ah, the Spit. It's Lithuania's natural crown jewel, basically.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely unique, not just in the Baltics, but globally.
What is it exactly?
It's this incredibly long, thin peninsula made almost entirely of sand dunes. It stretches for about 60 miles, or nearly 100 kilometers, separating the Baltic Sea from a large, freshwater lagoon called the Curonian Lagoon.
A sand dune peninsula in the Baltics.
Yeah, it's shared between Lithuania and the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site for both its natural beauty and the human effort to preserve it. It's known for having some of the highest moving sand dunes in Europe.
Moving sand dunes, like desert dunes.
Pretty much. Some parts are nicknamed the Lithuanian Sahara. These massive dunes are constantly being shifted by the wind, and historically they even buried entire villages. There's a constant battle between the forest and the sand.
Wow, that sounds incredibly dramatic, like something from another continent entirely.
It really is. The visual contrast is stunning. You have these vast, almost Saharan-looking dunes, then pine forests clinging to the sand, then the calm, reed-filled lagoon on one side, and the wild, open Baltic Sea on the other, all in this narrow strip of land.
So if you've been immersing yourself in the history of Vilnius and Kaunas,
Right, the deep history, the urban buzz.
heading out to the Curonian Spit offers a complete change of pace and scenery.
Completely. It's a pivot into pure nature. Wild, unique, incredibly beautiful nature. It balances the trip perfectly.
And it's not just something to look at, presumably. You can explore it.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic for outdoor activities. There are well-maintained cycling paths running much of its length, hiking trails through the forests and over the dunes. You can visit the charming little fishing villages like Nida, which have a very distinct architecture and history.
So it's active exploration in a unique environment.
Exactly. You can really engage with the ecosystem. Climb the Parnassus Dune for sunset over the lagoon, watch migratory birds, maybe even find some amber washed up on the Baltic beach. It adds a whole other dimension to the trip.
Okay, I can see why that's highlighted. That combination, accessible cities packed with history, plus this unique, wild, coastal nature that really fulfills that promise of an authentic experience off the beaten path.
It really does. It's a compelling mix.
It makes a very strong case. But, we're aiming for a final verdict here, which means we need to be realistic. No place is perfect for everyone. Where might Lithuania not quite hit the mark? For which type of traveler might it be? Well, maybe not the best fit.
Right. Managing expectations is crucial. And the source does include a key nuance, a sort of caveat. It's framed not as a flaw, but as a characteristic you need to be aware of.
And that is?
The main point is that Lithuania might feel more laid back.
Laid back. Okay. Now, in the context of a European capital, what does that actually mean? If I'm coming from, say, London or New York, does laid back mean sleepy, inefficient?
That's the potential worry, isn't it? Will things be open? Will service be slow?
Exactly. How does it translate practically for a visitor?
Well, laid back here probably means the general pace of life is just slower. Less frantic. It's not necessarily inefficient, but maybe more deliberate.
Okay. Explain deliberate.
Think about sitting down in a cafe. In a super high turnover city, they might want you in and out quickly. In Vilnius, the vibe might be more that you're welcome to linger, read a book, chat for an hour. Service might feel less rushed, more intentional. Some might read that as slow, others as relaxed and higher quality.
I see. A different philosophy of service, maybe?
Possibly. It reflects a different rhythm to the day.
But what about practical things? Like, if I desperately need something from a shop late at night or want dinner after a late flight, does laid back mean everything shuts down at 6 p.m.?
It probably means you need to plan a bit more intentionally than you might in a true 24/7 global city. Basic necessities, pharmacies, supermarkets will have reasonable hours, especially in cities. But you might find fewer options for very late-night dining or shopping compared to, say, Berlin.
So less spontaneity possible for late-night needs.
Perhaps. Public transport is reliable, but it likely won't run with the same all-night frequency as the tube or the NYC subway. The overall energy prioritizes maybe quality of life and deeper engagement during the main parts of the day and evening, rather than constant high-octane availability around the clock.
Okay, so it requires adjusting your own internal clock a bit, slowing down.
Exactly. You need to sync with the local rhythm, which can actually be part of the pleasure if you embrace it, but if you fight it,
It could be frustrating.
it could.
Let's push on the nightlife specifically. The source directly warns off travelers looking for nonstop nightlife or a very fast-paced city experience. How big is that gap compared to known party capitals?
I'd say the gap is pretty significant if your primary goal is that kind of intense, large-scale clubbing scene.
So, Lithuania has nightlife, but it's different.
Absolutely. Vilnius, Kaunas, they have plenty of great bars. Craft beer is big, cool cocktail spots, places with live music. There's definitely energy, especially with student populations. But it tends to be more focused on maybe smaller venues, more intimate settings, quality over sheer scale and volume.
So you won't find those massive super clubs pumping music until 8 a.m. every night of the week?
That's generally not the vibe, no. It's not Ibiza or Berlin in that respect. The nightlife exists, it can be vibrant, but it's unlikely to be the overwhelming, defining characteristic of your trip in the way it might be in some other cities.
Okay, so if your main reason for picking a European city break is that nonstop high-energy party scene.
Then Lithuania, based on this analysis, is probably not your top choice. You might find it, well, a bit tame.
Right, it comes back to aligning expectations with what the destination actually offers.
Precisely. In this laid-back pace, it's not presented as a negative overall. In fact, it's reframed.
How so?
The argument is that this slower rhythm is actually what enables the deeper cultural immersion and historical discovery that Lithuania excels at.
So the lack of frantic energy gives you space to actually notice things.
Exactly. It allows you the mental bandwidth to really absorb the complexity, to stand in Cathedral Square in Vilnius and think about the layers of history, from pagan temples to Soviet parades to independence celebrations, to appreciate the details in the architecture, to linger over a conversation, to properly explore the Curonian Spit without feeling rushed.
So the weakness for one type of traveler is actually a core strength for another.
That's the synthesis, yes. If you arrive expecting the constant stimulation of a megacity, you might find Vilnius or Kaunas too quiet. But if your goal is deliberate exploration, cultural depth, connecting with history and nature, then that gentler pace becomes a huge asset. It allows for reflection.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's about knowing what you want from your trip.
It really is. So the final verdict, while a strong yes, is definitely conditional. It's a yes for the traveler who values depth, authenticity, and discovery, delivered at a human pace and scale.
Right. It rewards intentionality.
Beautifully put. It rewards the traveler looking for quality and complexity, maybe over sheer quantity or speed.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up then. This deep dive really confirms that initial final verdict from our source material. For 2026, Lithuania looks like a strong contender.
A resounding yes, but specifically targeted. It's a yes for the learner, the explorer, the traveler who wants to go a bit deeper than the surface.
And the core reasons boil down to this really unique combination.
Exactly. On one hand, you have the practical advantages. Real affordability translating into better value, and a manageable size making exploration efficient and less stressful.
And on the other hand,
You have the incredible depth, the sheer scale of its history, from Grand Duchy to modern resilience, the vibrant contemporary culture that blends tradition and forward thinking, and these truly stunning, unique natural landscapes like the Curonian Spit.
So the takeaway for you, the listener planning for 2026. If you're looking for that rich European experience, the history, the architecture, the culture, but you actively want to avoid the downsides of the major Western hubs,
The overwhelming crowds, the crippling prices.
then Lithuania should absolutely be high on your list. It offers that blend of Baroque beauty and modern energy.
But, and it's an important but, go with the right mindset. If you need that constant buzz, that 24/7 action, the massive party scene.
You need to be prepared for Lithuania's rhythm.
Yeah.
It's different, it's slower, maybe more thoughtful, more contemplative.
Embrace that pace, and the rewards in terms of depth and authenticity seem immense. Fight it, and you might miss the point.
Excellent summary. Now, before we wrap up, that final provocative thought for our listeners to mull over.
Well, thinking about this whole discussion, the affordability, the charm, the off-the-beaten-path feeling,
Right.
it makes you consider the life cycle of a destination, doesn't it?
So,
Lithuania's current appeal, especially for 2026, is so tightly linked to it not being overrun yet. It still feels relatively undiscovered on the grand scale of European tourism.
right, it hasn't hit that tipping point.
Exactly. So the question becomes, how long does that last? This compelling mix of value, authenticity, and accessibility is powerful. As more people discover it, how will that change the very character we've been discussing?
So the thought is, seize the moment.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
Or at least
right.
travel with awareness. If
Yeah.
you go to Lithuania now or in the next couple of years, recognize that you're likely experiencing it during a particularly special window. How can you as a traveler best engage with its unique current character, appreciate that specific blend we've talked about, before the inevitable evolution that comes with wider popularity potentially shifts its rhythm for good? Something to think about as you plan.